Right then, Dan, me and you now.
Oh,
Don't need to discuss tea. Don't need to do any of that. We can get straight into what we're going to discuss, which is Saturday's opponents, Liverpool. Saturday's
yeah.
opponents, Liverpool, very much out of sorts at the moment. I haven't got their form on screen. You can maybe get that up while I'm talking right now, while I just
Yep.
just
Got it.
blag for a bit. But yeah, Liverpool, obviously, I think pretty well documented recently anyway. Form's not been so great. I think I heard on Match of the Day earlier, 5 of the last 7 games at Anfield have been lost. That might now be 5 of the last 8. Obviously, they're coming to Ellen Road this time. But yeah, it's not been going great for Slot recently after a pretty good start to the season as well. But then the good start maybe was papering over some cracks, Dan, because they were scoring a lot of kind of late goals to win games. You'll have definitely watched the one at St James's Park with your lovely wife, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, we did. Yep.
When they scored late. And they did so against Bournemouth, and they did so in Champions League. They've done it quite a bit, but that's dried up, and so the wins have dried up a bit, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking through. They've had 4 wins in the last 14 games. To put into context, that's in all competitions. Europe, European Cup, like a draw. It's just LLL all the way down. So yeah,
Looks like Leeds.
they look like a pretty average team right now. So I don't. I mean, I've been trying to work out what's going on with them, but yeah, there's something significantly not right about that club right now. Um, there's probably tactical elements to that, but you just wonder about other elements as well, don't you? Sort of emotional elements and that kind of stuff as well with them.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Liverpool fans and other football fans on both sides of that, which we won't talk about too much, but it's definitely an interesting part of this season for them,
Yeah,
even though it was in sad circumstances. And I think I think you do have to cut them some slack for sure. At the same
yeah.
time, they're certainly not doing things that they were doing as well last season. So let's talk about them in possession and maybe what's been different to last season or anything you've noticed this season so far that's been good or not so good, if you
Well, I
can.
think
I've
what
got
they're
some
trying to,
notes myself. Go on.
yeah, just in terms of last season, the key thing is they've lost Trent, haven't they? They don't have a deep playmaker anymore. So last season they could build up, and if the build up didn't work, they could recycle the ball back out, and the ball would hit Trent, and then they've got a big switch, or they've got like a change of play, or they've got like just an excellent ball, the best ball playing right back in world football probably. So they've lost that kind of effectively deep playmaker. They've tried to replace him with like tried to replace that kind of creative output with forwards. So all of a sudden, you've got your really good creative players having to drop in from forward areas to pick the ball up and then progress it. Whereas before, Trent could take care of that. So I think just in terms of progression, they can't progress the ball that well anymore. I saw a stat the other day on, I think it was a Tifo video about the percentile of ball progression from fullbacks, like the FBref charts that show like, the ball progression stats. And like last season, like Trent was 100 and like Robertson was like 98 or something. It's like, the best, 2 of the best 3 in the league or something like that. Now, the 2 guys I got this year, they're all in the 70s. It's just average. So there's just like a fullback progression drop off. So like they just can't get the ball into good areas. They can't get the ball into decent players in good areas at all, like they did last season. And I think that's the root of everything, really. That's my view.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit onto that. So yeah, I think tactically, there's been a lot talked about in terms of Liverpool from last season to this season, in terms of how the new signings would change things. But it seems to me, like what from what you're saying as well, that they haven't actually tried to change that much. They've just tried to shoehorn different profiles into those zones. So Jeremy Frimpong hasn't looked like Trent. He is an attacking fullback, and maybe some people were thinking, "Oh, this will be fine." But it's not the same. He is a kind of direct last line runner. He's a right wing back.
He's
right
a ball
winger,
carrier. He carries it. Yeah,
he's very good at that because he's rapid,
yeah.
great engine,
Yeah.
decent dribbler. Trent, not so much, but you want him because he can do stuff in the build-up phases. I think Konate has been quite highly rated over the last few years, but since Trent's left, you can kind of see more of his issues in his game, and he's not looked anywhere near as good this season, probably because he's got a bit more responsibility in build-up for one, and 2, he's just looked like a bit more of a bozo at defending transitions. Van Dijk's another year older. I still think he's looked broadly fine, but he is still another year older, so it's probably a bit of decline there. And Kirk has just been such a poor signing because he's a very attacking fullback that doesn't do a lot of defending, is not the best on the ball, though, even though he gets forward.
It's just all
That
energy, isn't it, with him? It's not technical, it's just energy, isn't it, with him?
Yeah,
And Liverpool
and
need a
then
bit
you've
more.
got Robertson having to come back in. As you said, he's very, very, very good for ball progression. And so they've had to rely on a, 31, nearly 32-year-old
Yeah.
Andy Robertson to come into the team, who has certainly looked like a declining player over the last few years as well, but he's done quite well this season when he's had to come in. So, yeah, it's all of that. It's other stuff as well. Like you say, the creativity is now in the final third. Wirtz is their now best creative player. He's not maybe shown it fully yet, but he is that. Like, he is a very, very good technical player. And so is Szoboszlai, but they've had to move him deeper to try and be a bit more Trent-like, and that's helped a little bit. But you still kind of want him further forward if you can. So that meant that you've got Wirtz dropping into areas probably doesn't want the ball. You want him further forward into those kind of, where you've got the ball around the box and he can make stuff happen. He likes to be in those areas where he's under a lot of pressure and he can get things to work, but he's not always there. He obviously got the goal involvement against Sunderland that mattered in midweek, and it did go down as an own goal, but he still created that because he's so good in those areas. But it just means that they've lost a lot. But there's another thing that John mentioned to me, because I spoke to him about it, which this one had gone over my head, which is that Luis Diaz, maybe like not the most like highly regarded player by general Premier League fans and even by some Liverpool fans, to be fair. But one thing he did have was he was a pretty good hold-up winger. So we've talked about this with Nonto, we've talked about this with Harrison. They're quite good at that for us. He was that version of that. None of their other wingers really do that. Like Hakpo's got some size to him, but he's not really that player. And then you've got Salah doesn't want to do that, and again he's another year older, and so they have just lost something in that sense again.
And the ball's bouncing back. It's not sticking up front. Yeah.
Exactly. So quite a few different problems in quite a few different areas, it has to be said, in terms of in possession. And in terms of out of possession then, Dan, I had a look at the data, which was probably the most interesting part here. They are still ranking pretty well for things like shot ending high turnovers. I think they're the most in the league, if I remember correctly. I can't find the correct screenshot here. And all that kind of thing. That they're very good at those sort of actions. Their passes per defensive action numbers are the fourth best in the league, if I remember correctly. So they're still doing a lot of the pressing stuff and the work in that sense. But out of possession, they've also had some issues this season, haven't they?
Yeah, so they're quite aggressive still. They're still they kind of press. They kind of press in a 4-2-4 almost, and then occasionally they go man to man with and leaving like one spare at the back. Now, so obviously they were known for this under Klopp, weren't they? Being quite a good aggressive pressing team. He always talked about their best number 10 being the pressing and all that kind of stuff. I think some of those principles have remained. I think Slopp's fairly into that stuff, but they do go quite aggressive, and they do. They've got a couple of problems. Like they'll press high, and they've got some of the forwards aren't necessarily that good at pressing. Salah, in particular, these days, and they tend to leave a lot to the two centre backs. They don't have a really big secure rest defence. They really pile players forward in the press. They'll have to press with a really front four, a midfield two, a midfield two, and the fullbacks will push up alongside the midfielders and press in two blocks of four almost with just the two centre backs. So there's real opportunities to hit them on the counter. And if the press isn't perfect and you can break that initial press, which I think teams have been able to do by going direct, they're very gettable. So I'm not like. I think they're going to create chances with the press. They're going to win the ball high. It's going to work for them in an offensive sense, but it definitely leaves them very vulnerable at times.
Yeah, well, a tiny bit more to add on to this then, but I agree with everything you said there. I think a lot of tactico types were expecting Liverpool to score more this season, but also concede more, and that would be the payoff. And at the start of the season, they looked like they were bang on with that Bournemouth game, with that Newcastle game.
Yeah.
It looked like it was going to be spot on, but so far since, it's not transpired that way. And obviously, like out of possession stuff still lends itself to in possession stuff. It also impacts game state. So one of the things that's been happening is they're quite susceptible to second balls in midfield because their midfield is quite man oriented as well. So it's not just that the front four press so aggressively; the midfield are quite man oriented, and when that is exposed, it means that teams are then picking up the pieces off a second ball. They've got direct runs against a poor rest defense, as you said. And that means that they're often going behind in games. And so then, transitions have been a huge issue for them. Going behind in games has been an issue for them. So then game state becomes an issue because they're behind and teams have something to protect. So all in all, it's been a bit of a spiral in that sense. Having said that, I think these issues were present last season. It's just that they were kind of getting away with it a bit more. They were going ahead a bit more, probably because they had more quality in possession in terms of the structure and in terms of what we were saying about Trent, so that they were able to get the ball forward into good areas and create chances and score. So before the opposition had the moments to do so. But if Liverpool don't score their first couple of attacks now, it feels like if the opposition then counter on them and score, then they've got a huge problem there, because they were so good in a winning game state last season, which was the majority of the time they were so good last season. And yeah, you mentioned how aggressive they can press sometimes in the front four. They've now taken one of their best out possession players in Szoboszlai and put him as right back. He is, a really elite out of possession player, really good off the ball player. He's not like the best tackler in the world, but like in terms of his intelligence in those areas, he's very energetic. His intensity is good.
Yeah.
And they're missing that. So it's just had a knock-on effect throughout the team. Suddenly the right back that's not working for you, you're taking out or you're moving further forward to put Szoboszlai further back, but then he's out of the midfield, which you need him in because he's so good out of possession. Gravenberch, one of their best players over the last couple of years now as well. Not only is he exceptional for the in-possession stuff that we were talking about in terms of build-up, he is really, really good for that, but he's also one of their most physical and dynamic midfielders out of the possession as well. He's had injuries so far. If they can get him fit, that will also help, but they don't really have a direct analogue to him, so quite a lot of issues, really, for Liverpool. And for those reasons, probably a good time to play them, right? Because, we can definitely cause them some problems here from what we've said. And, we were just talking about second balls then. We've been really good at that against Chelsea, so we could well be here, couldn't we?
Yeah, I was like I say, preparing for this, watching a bit of Liverpool, and I was thinking, these are ideal for Leeds United of last night. They're not ideal for Leeds United that played Brighton away. Like, no. They'll eat us for breakfast. That version of Leeds United, Liverpool will eat for breakfast. Yeah. But if we played the second half Man City Leeds United against Chelsea last night, it's got a really, really good chance of like causing Liverpool some big trouble, big problems. So I fancy our chances a little bit here if Farke does the right thing.
Yeah, I agree. And so teams, because of Liverpool's press, been going a heck of a lot more direct, and the coverage in the defensive area has not been good. Szoboszlai, as we say, they put him back there to help that, but they're losing him in midfield. So really weird. I don't know if their usual plan will be different, Dan, and I don't know if they'll move him around. We'll talk about the starting lineup potentially in a second, but do you think that they'll be any different, having watched us now for 1.5 games and what we've done? Do you think that Slot will maybe adapt things slightly, or do you think they'll play the way that you're expecting them to play and we might get some joy?
And I think Slot's going to stick to his plan. I think he's wedded to this plan, isn't he? And playing his way. And I think he'll fancy it coming good at some point in the near future. He'll tweak it by perhaps putting Szoboszlai back in midfield. Maybe he's done that once. I think he has played back in midfield a couple of times recently, so that might happen. He might try and counter our physicality with different profiles of players, like say Szoboszlai back in the midfield. Maybe Curtis Jones gets a run in the midfield. Maybe maybe they'll just shore things up that way. But no, I think his general approach will be the same. It'll be like possession build up, try and join us out, all that kind of stuff. And try and press us man to man.
I totally agree. Let's talk about transfers. And we've already touched on this a little bit, but they've not all been very successful so far, it's fair to say. You probably can talk about Alexander Isak because your wife is a Newcastle fan, as I mentioned. And he's not got us the best start, but are you that surprised when he didn't have a pre-season? And that's being one factor because he was completely frozen out for Newcastle. So he's probably had to take some time to get up to speed. Is that fair to say that that's been the main reason, or is there more to it than that?
No, well, I think that's probably the main reason in terms of the slow start. I think there's a couple of niggles as well, which probably hampered things. Tight calf or something. Anyway, I think that's, and I think the other thing is just probably just in terms of the understanding of his teammates. He's coming like during the season. He's coming into a team that's on the slide a little bit. I think the way he plays is not always the sort of central striker. He drifts wide quite a lot, doesn't he, and drifts out into the channels and stuff. I don't know if that's maybe not necessarily ideal for Liverpool. I don't know if they want someone to hold position in the central areas a bit more. for the way they play. So I just think it's probably just a combination of a slow start because of his late arrival, and secondly, just working out his place in the team and how he kind of fits together with the other players and like the kind of runs he makes. I mean, he's quite a different player, isn't he, to the forwards they had last season? I mean, who were they playing up front last season? They were playing Diogo was playing up front, wasn't he? And
Diogo
the guy
Jota
they
would have
sold
been
for a lot
one.
of
Darwin
money.
Nunez would have been another. Yeah,
Nunes, that's the guy. Yeah,
can't remember
Nunes.
who
So it's
else.
more of like a physical. Yeah, well, did they play Gatko up front quite a bit as well?
Yeah, they
Through the
probably
middle
played
quite a
him
bit.
there, and they obviously had Luis Diaz as a forward option, so they could probably play someone like him up front. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a more technical player. Yeah, so yeah, it's just a very different sort of player. And I think it's just taking its time, obviously, to bed in really.
Yeah, he also thrives off those kind of crosses into the box that they're not doing as much of as Newcastle. Kind of low balls as well. Like Jacob Murphy used to like smash them across.
Yeah,
and he just put one in, and they're not doing that as much. Liverpool without someone like
yeah,
Trent,
Isak
he might have
it was
suited that.
his movement was excellent, wasn't he? Getting off the back of a centre back and and sneaking in front of the centre back and getting the goal. Yeah, I think he was ideal for Newcastle, wasn't he? Really, his style of play was like the perfect forward for their style. I'm not sure it quite works at Liverpool just yet.
Yep, totally agree. Just to gloss over a few other signings, we've already talked about Wirtz and how he's starting to find his feet. Definitely, he's had better performances in the last 4 or 5 games now. Hugo Ekitike is a really weird one because they got Isak as well, and it's like you're fitting 2 into the team. You can't always both play together. Maybe sometimes they can, but I don't know. That's a bit of a weird one to have both. Kirkish hasn't been a success. Frimpong hasn't so far, but I do think he's got good attributes. And then they signed a young centre back who did his ACL called Leone from Parma. So not much else they probably could have done with doing more. And also, like we said before, just a lot of these are not the same profile as the player that they've replaced.
Yeah.
And if Slot was wanting to play the team and the system in broadly the same way, it was probably going to take some time for players to either adapt or for him to realise that he shouldn't be doing that, and he should probably be doing things a bit differently with certain players, which he has now seen. I think it's been mentioned that Jeremy Frimpong will probably play as a winger when Salah's at the African Cup of Nations, because he'll probably suit that more than playing as a right back. In terms of the lineup for this game then, Dan, what are we thinking? Because Liverpool are another one of these teams that are fighting on different fronts and who have big fixture pile up in December. So will they be making many changes from the Sunderland game in midweek?
Quite possibly, yeah. I was trying to work out the team for this game, and there's a few positions where they rotate quite a bit. So I think the kind of Alisson's always in goal. Van Dijk and Konate, the first choice centre backs, they start when they're fit. I think Gravenberch and McAllister probably the first choice sort of double pivot there. Kirkes left back. I think they've been playing Joe Gomez right back recently, but I wonder if Frimpong might get a run out because Gomez has played quite a bit recently. So it's one of those, Gomez or Frimpong. Gakpo has played both wings. I think, generally speaking, I think he's the first choice left winger.
Yeah.
I think I think the start of the season with Salah as the first choice right winger, but he's been dropped recently, hasn't he? He's not been playing as much. So they've been playing Gakpo on the right, and they've been playing Wirtz on the wing and Szoboszlai on the wing. It's just been a real weird mix of players in different positions. So my guess is the ideal is Salah playing well on the right, Gakpo playing well on the left, Szoboszlai or Wirtz at 10. That would be I think that's probably the idea. And then Isaac's been starting more recently as the main striker. Again, he played midweek, so I wouldn't be shocked if Ekitike gets a run out against us just for rotation purposes. So my guess would be Van Dijk, Konate, Kirkes, Gomez back 4, Alisson goal, McAllister, Gravenberch, probably Wirtz at 10, Ekitike up front, and Gakpo and Salah would be my guess.
Yeah,
but don't be shocked if Szoboszlai.
No, go on.
Yeah, Salah on the right. Yeah. Don't be shocked if Szoboszlai gets a game in that front three instead of one of those 3 guys. Don't be totally shocked if McAllister gets maybe rotated for Curtis Jones or someone just for fresh legs, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, I'm interested to see where they put Szoboszlai, to be fair, because, like we said, he does help fix their build-up problems a little bit and rest defence problems a little bit, but you do want him in midfield really against our players, and it'll be a bit of a physical mismatch with Stack against Wirtz, although they have done battle before in the Bundesliga a few times. I think he'll rotate. I think Salah probably will come back in, and not because
Yeah.
Slot will particularly care about the fact that Salah has an insane record against Leeds. It's frightening. I think it's like 9 in 6 games or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
But I think he'll play because he's rested him twice. So this will be one to come back in for. Maybe he does rotate Isak out. He's still struggling with fitness a little bit, and he played in midweek against Sunderland, but he also scored against West Ham last time out. His first Premier League goal for them. And I don't know if he can do 3 in a week at the moment with his current state, so probably will be Ekitike. It's just what he does in midfield and at fullback. That's what I'm most concerned by. I think you're right about the front three, but I just don't know what he's going to do in those areas because he's moved things around, and they drew against Sunderland, so maybe he'll make even more changes. Maybe he'll be minded to do that. Anything else about Liverpool, or can I move on to some just quick stats stuff? I've already talked about a couple of these, but
stats. Yeah, stats.
So direct speed is one of the ones that I was looking at because we talked about how they're struggling in build-up. They're quite happy to go direct because of that. In terms of the direct attack speed, they are the 4th fastest in the league. We are actually 7th, so that's improving slowly for us. They're in there with good company like Brentford and Newcastle, the kind of normal sorts that you'd expect to see. Brighton as well. I've talked about some of their out of possession stuff. The actual XG and expected goals against numbers are not actually terrible, to be brutally honest. But this is maybe not too much of a surprise. They're 5th for expected goals. They are 4th for expected goals against. So that's pretty good, but it's not maybe the levels they were reaching last season where they were probably a top 2 team for both stats or around that mark. I don't really know what else is important here. They're not a great corner team. They've only actually won the 10th most corners this season in the league, which is not a huge amount. They obviously don't generate a lot. Go on, Dan.
And they don't defend set pieces very well, corners very well. So I think it's somewhere for us to get some joy. They're quite low down on the table for defensive set pieces.
Almost they are indeed. I was going to get to that, but you have got there before me. Yeah, in terms of attacking, expected goals from set pieces, they're the 3rd worst in the league behind Wolves and Fulham, which is really poor. But then, for expected goals against, I don't have it quite to hand. I'm not sure that's exactly bang on, but they're not particularly great. You'd expect a team that are as dominant as they are to maybe be a bit better than they are, but they are definitely vulnerable from that area. I think that's the main ones. I can't see anything else unless you have anything you wanted to bring to the table in terms of stats.
No, that's good.
Lovely. We'll move on to the Leeds half of the analysis in just a second then.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick one. If you're enjoying the video, be sure to like and subscribe to help us keep the content coming. And if you want even more, you can support us over on patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. You'll get bonus podcasts, exclusive articles, and access to our Discord community, all while helping us make more of the content you love. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
Right. Let's talk about how Leeds can potentially hurt Liverpool then. What we expect in the lineup to look like, Dan, is the first question. Now, this is interesting because in his press conference today, Farke has said that Calvert-Lewin and Metcher are both struggling slightly. Hopefully, in this case, it's one of those where Farke's saying that, but at least one of them makes it. Even if one of them has to be on the bench or one of them has to miss out altogether. If that's the case, do you think he'll stick with the 3-5-2? And if so, do you think he'll just put Okafor in, even though he maybe says he doesn't want to be a striker and whatever? Maybe that's just what makes sense. Okafor hasn't started in the last 2 games, so this would be a chance to rotate slightly and get him in the team. Or are you expecting him to try and be as unchanged as possible because of how we played in midweek?
I think he'll go with the 3-5-2 and he will rest one of those 2 and he'll probably try and get them to share the 90 minutes with Okafor and perhaps Perot coming on at some point as well, just to share the workload. So I think it'll be a bit of a team effort up front, and he'll just, because he says it a lot, doesn't he, about someone's got an injury and then they play.
Yeah.
It's like it's a bit of a thing for him, isn't he? He just take quite a bit. So I heard that today. I thought, okay, they'll be all right. Now,
I think so too.
That's not ideal, is it? But it feels likely that Calvert-Lewin, if he's fit enough, will start, and he'll maybe have Nemetcher on the bench, and then I'll just bring Nemetcher on second half for Calvert-Lewin at some point. That'll be my guess at what he'll do if he can, and it'll be either Okafor or perhaps Aronson as a second striker. That's possibly an option as well. Playing Aronson sort of behind, for the counter press and being busy. Would kind of make sense, wouldn't it? But yeah, I think Okafor likely to start instead of Nemecha would be my guess.
I think so
Fitness
too,
line.
and I think it makes the most sense because of what we were talking about earlier with Liverpool being more susceptible to transitions and their rest defence being pretty poor this season.
Yeah.
I think Okafor makes the most sense by far. That direct running against Kanate, who has genuinely looked. I used to think he was a really, really good centre back, and my opinion of him has probably gone down more than most Premier League players from this season so far. It's maybe a bit harsh, but just where I'm at. So I would like to see Okafor give him some more trouble. Other than that, the only other player maybe of note that he mentioned was Tanaka, who he said he should be in the ice bath right now or something along those lines. Because he said that basically some of the players feeling maybe a bit tight, maybe a bit struggling, not in those exact words, but it's kind of what he was implying. Hopefully he still makes it. And like you say, he does this a lot, Farke, and then they just end up making it.
Yeah.
I've already answered part of this with Okafor, but in terms of that, then not Martin. I'm usually used to saying Martin. Dan. In terms of that, Dan, who are the players most likely to cause Liverpool problems?
I'm just going to continue with my McCalvert-Lewin. Love him if he's fit. I think he's causing centre backs problems this year with his direct play. Another thing is I think Liverpool's wingers aren't great at tracking back, so I think there's probably really good counter-attacking options or opportunities for both Goodmanson and Bogle building from deep if they're fit and healthy. So I can see us getting a bit of joy sort of breaking out from wide areas with our fullbacks sort of kicking a lot of our good attacks off. And if that works pretty well, then if, say, Okafor does play as one of the second strikers, he could potentially pull out wide and combine with Goodmanson on the left a little bit, even though he's a striker. We might see some joy in those kind of transition moments down the left side or down the right side. So I kind of quite like the idea of Okafor in this game because I feel like those transition moments might be quite fruitful for like a second striker going out almost as like an auxiliary winger, depending on where the attack is, and it might work quite well. So yeah, I feel fullbacks and whoever supports the fullback could have a good day, and Calvert-Lewin will just win the aerials as he does. And then set pieces, I've said already, it's going to be a set piece day, isn't it? Liverpool can't defend set piece. We've got a lot of monsters to hurt them with set pieces. So
I agree with everything you said except for one thing, which is something that I looked into, which was actually really surprising when I looked at this. So I looked at the set piece data for Liverpool, and obviously it being pretty poor in terms of an attacking sense. But in terms of aerial duels won, they're the second best team in the league behind Man City, and only just behind Man City. So when you mentioned the Calvert-Lewin against their centre-backs, maybe a bit Kanate, although he's a big lad, but he isn't getting the better of Van Dijk, who is probably top 3 centre-back in the world in terms of his aerial stuff, and top 3 centre-back in the world anyway as well, to be fair. But I think this is one of those games where actually Calvert-Lewin might not have as much joy. That said, just one last point on this, it's not always about winning the battle. So sometimes if he can
if
he can just put Van Dijk off enough that he can't direct the aerial properly, then we can still win those second balls with that midfield that are not as kind of strong. I know Gravenberg's a pretty strong player and Szoboszlai is not bad, but a stronger player in that area. So
that's the point. Yeah.
Hopefully
Calvert-Lewin can do enough to disrupt and be a nuisance, even if you can't win it. It's just about being in a position to capitalise on that disruption.
And I still hope Okafor gambles in case he does win it, and he does try to run off the shoulder. But if he doesn't win it every time, then Okafor just needs to be ready on the last line for a midfielder to perhaps then be rushing onto the ball, and then suddenly we might be breaking 4-on-4 or something, and then Okafor might be able to peel in behind. That's the hope there, I think. So yeah, I do think that those are the kind of areas we can cause some problems. Midfield at fullback, just because of our strength in those areas in terms of physicality and against their press. And then, like you say, maybe Calvert-Lewin can just do enough against Van Dijk, who will love that battle. He'll relish against someone like Calvert-Lewin. I think he'll back himself to beat the better of him. Anyone that might struggle in this one, obviously Liverpool have a lot of quality, Dan. So even though they've been poor this season so far, and even nowhere near their best, like Salah still has quality, even if he looks like he's declined a bit. You can't be dismissive of everyone in their team just because of their poor moment they're in. They could just turn up, it could all just click, and suddenly they're swarming all over us, and they've got players playing little passes around each other, and suddenly they're in the box breaking with players. I don't know, it could be quite ugly at times just because of the technical quality of some of their players. But who are you most focused on?
Well, I think it's the combinations, isn't it? If those combinations click with their quick passing, and they're technically superior to Leeds, aren't they, in pretty much every department. their players. So if they can move the ball quickly and swiftly with some really nice combinations, they'll be able to pass around us quite comfortably, I think. And I think if we get, I mean, I don't know if, like I say, I've said Ekitike or Isak, if those can get running off the shoulder of our centre backs, that could be a problem as well. You can imagine Isak stealing in between our centre backs and putting a goal away, can't you? Whether he starts or not is a different matter. But so I kind of worry about, like Salah, even though he's not playing well at the moment, is still going to be sharper and faster than any of our players, and technically good. I worry about Gakpo cutting in and getting shots away from the left hand side with his right foot. I think he's really, really good at that. So it's the wide players really that kind of worry me. And a slight worry with the 3-5-2, if we do go with that, which I think we will, is it tends to be a bit central, doesn't it? Sometimes it's susceptible to fast switches of play. If you just got one fullback, wing backs are in the far side, quick switch, and then the opposition can have overload you on the other side sometimes. So that could be a problem if they spotted that. Against Chelsea, there were a couple of times we were kind of narrow on the pitch, and Chelsea weren't very good at getting the ball switched out to the other side. And there's a couple of chances. I think they missed chances to do that. Liverpool might not.
Do you mean when Bogle or Goodmanson decides to go on a little kind of driving run inverted into midfield, and then suddenly there's a lot of space?
Yeah, just like a quick switch, like a good long ball in behind diagonally and stuff. I think Chelsea didn't see that or do anything about that, but Liverpool might. So that's potentially some way they could hurt us.
I'm glad they don't have Trent because he loves that pass.
I was thinking that when I was saying it, but still, they've got players that can pass the ball. I mean, Van Dijk can still pass. There's a good long passer.
Yeah, obviously, like some people will talk about the back three and how defensively solid it can be, but for the reasons you've just said, I think that there is a chance we get a little bit carried away at fullback and we want to get forward, and then suddenly you might have moments where you can get that switch on for Liverpool and you can isolate like Struijk on Salah. Salah's still more than quick enough and technical enough to beat Struijk in a 1-versus-1 situation where you're dragging Struijk out of position which you don't want him to be in. So that would worry me, and it kind of is similar on the other side, although Rodon has a little bit more speed to him, of course. But yeah, I agree with that. The other thing to say about Liverpool is, like, I do think physically we can beat this team. Obviously, they haven't beaten us technically, but athleticism in their side is pretty good. When I think about the amount of players that are just really quick, they've got quite a lot of them on the bench too. So if there are tired legs and our intensity is lacking, and I think it is an issue. I think people are going to notice it more in this shape, even though we've looked good so far. I think that as time goes on in this busy schedule, when you've got like 2 games a week quite often until the new year, I think people will notice it in second halves. But if they've got bench which can bring on that kind of speed and intensity and athleticism, I don't know if we've got the legs for that across our side over 90 minutes. Maybe we do for 70, but I hope that in late into games, that we can see it out. But I do worry that we won't always be able to do that. So there could be some players struggling a little bit in that sense. Dan, are we expecting us to stay with the back three, though? We've said that in terms of lineup, yes. But are we, in terms of tactics, do we think we're going to play this the same way as we did Chelsea broadly, in and out of possession?
I think so. I don't think Park's got any choice, has he, really? It worked really well. I think the players will be tired, so I don't think he'll want them pressing too high. So I think we'll drop into that block with the occasional kind of aggressive pressing moment. So I think Fark will choose a pretty similar approach, maybe dial down a touch, maybe just a bit more selective about when we go aggressive. So yeah, I don't see a change. I don't think he's got enough time to change it. I think he'd been mad to change it after such a good result. So yeah, it'll be the same, or roughly the same.
I agree. I don't really think there's anything to add. It hopefully can play out similarly, but I'm sure the Liverpool analysts will have done their homework and passed stuff on to Slot and his team, and there might be things they've picked up on that they think they can get at us for already at 1.5 games into playing a 3-5-2. I agree. And then final question then, Dan, to wrap us up. What will this game of football look like, and where will the game be won or lost?
I feel like a bit like Chelsea, if we can get our noses in front, I feel like the game's in our control again because we can get our block set and then look to just sort of shepherd Liverpool around. That's easier said than done, isn't it? But we could look to do that. So if we can get our noses in front from a set piece, just like Chelsea, then I would fancy the game to play in a similar way. Whether we come away with the win or not is a different matter, but I can see the game being that shape. I think it could be quite ugly if Liverpool go in front. I'm not sure how this team would handle being behind. In this shape, we don't have a lot of creativity, so I think it would just be a lot of probably a lot of quite direct play and just hoping for flick-ons and knock-ons and things like that, and trying to just scrap our way back into the game. So I suspect Liverpool have all the 65% of the ball more. I think we will have moments, scrappy moments, and who scores first. If we can score first, then we've got a fighting chance of seeing it through. A bit like the Chelsea game.
Yeah, I think mentality is actually something to bring up here, which we haven't mentioned, which is the fact that Liverpool at the moment, the way they are, they're definitely these players are used to winning a lot. So if they go behind, it maybe is a bit different to if we went ahead against a mid-table team who might be more used to it.
Yeah,
they are just in a poor moment, and I think that a lot of these players will struggle with that if they're doing it again. It's happened a lot recently, and it might be difficult for them to come back into it. Also, our crowd will make a big difference to us in that sense. I hope that if we do go behind, that the plan doesn't change, because I still think that's still the way to. Don't start suddenly wanting to possess the ball more. No, just keep at it, even if you're only one goal behind. Okay, if you're two, there's maybe a bit more onus to be a bit more aggressive and to attack them a bit more in numbers. But if it's only 1-0, just keep going the same way, keep plugging away like that, and you might find your way back into it, because I think that is the way to go here. But yeah, the first goal will be big. And then how Liverpool defend transitions, like if they play a very attacking back four, let's say they do go with Frimpong and Kirkaj as they've gone for earlier in the season as fullbacks. I'm not saying they will, but even though they're both pretty quick, their rest defense has been so poor that we could definitely create moments there where we can have 3-on-4, 4-on-3 kind of situations and break on them. Can we make the most of those? Can we have enough of those? If they go ahead, will they even give those up? I don't know. So these things need to be answered, and I'm not so sure. We need to show that Arne Slot is a bald fraud and that he should have come to Leeds, because he didn't.
Should have done, yeah.
The reason I bring up bald fraud is because in the first half of this podcast, we didn't mention the fact that Will really wanted us to give him a shout out, because he didn't go into enough detail on the preview about how much he doesn't rate Maresca, because he didn't want to go too far on it. But now Farke's beat him 3 times out of 3. He really wanted to hammer that home, that he's a bald fraud and that he doesn't belong anywhere near, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing here, but he doesn't belong anywhere near Chelsea or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But the same might be true of Slot if we beat them, despite the mitigating circumstances we mentioned earlier and the context around their season so far. I would love to beat them, and we've played Pep this week as well. So 3 baldies in a row. Shout out to our bald friends listening, any of them. But hopefully we do cause them more issues. Hopefully we do reel them into this relegation battle, tongue in cheek. But we will actually be breathing right down their throats if we beat them, won't we? We'll be like 1 point behind or something.
Something ridiculous,
I think that's everything. I don't know if there's anything else to say. You got a last point to make on Liverpool or Leeds, or anything else you want to sign off with?
No, it's just funny, isn't it? Like watching a bit of Liverpool struggling and watching us last night. All of a sudden, they're like, "Oh, we could hurt them." If the game plays out like it did the other day, that's a giant if. But I think everybody should go into the game with some optimism for once.
That's the big thing. I think there was a period recently where I was feeling a bit fed up, and watching Leeds was becoming not a chore, but like it wasn't as fun and enjoyable, which has not been the case for a while. And now there's a bit of hope in this game, because you think if he goes with the right way of playing, and Liverpool the way they have been, definitely can get a point here or something. And it's crazy, isn't it? Because just 3 days ago, you would have said, out of the 2 managers in the dugout, who was more under pressure after this game? If Leeds win, it's completely flipped almost. Like Farke's almost got a free ride until at least January, and Slot might be under enormous pressure. So, yeah, huge game between the 2 champions of England over the last season, the Premier League and the Championships. That
true.
El Clasico Leeds pool game. Anyway, we'll end on there. So if you want to sign up to our Patreon and get bonus content ahead of the January window, where we were talking about transfers and all that kind of stuff, it's patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. On there at the moment is a transfer store podcast talking about some targets for January. We might need to do a different one now, because if the shape is different, we might need to think about that. We'll have to talk about that behind the scenes at ASAW headquarters. But yes, that's all for this one. So please like and subscribe on YouTube. And all that's left for me to say is thank you very much to Hosty, who's not here anymore. Everyone wish him a happy birthday. I think it's in a day after you listen to this, it goes out. I won't reveal his birthday in case he doesn't want me to say it, but something like that. So go and say happy birthday to him. And thank you very much to Dan.
Cheers, Adam. It's been fun.
And thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, this was a pretty good one. Got a lot of detail out of Liverpool, even though didn't have a guest on this week, which is probably the quick turnaround. But we'll be back with a review of that Liverpool game very soon, as well as, I can't remember who we've got next. Is it Palace or Brentford?
I think so, yeah. It's Palace.
Someone like that.
Oh, Brentford first. Yeah,
Is it
Brentford away. And then we've got like Sunderland and Palace, I think, fairly soon.
Big run coming up. But we'll be back with all of that very soon. So enjoy the rest of the week and the weekend, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.